tonight.
Parents don't really have rights, they have responsibilities, and it's children who have the rights.
An emergency sitting at the legislature. The Premier introduces a bill that would use the notwithstanding clause to protect the government's controversial pronoun policy. Also, the CEO of the Regina Exhibition Association admits a conflict of interest, but says it's being handled by the book. Plus, after 4 days of war, more than 1,900 people are dead. We have the latest in the Hamas-Israel conflict.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Tuesday, October 10th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. Premier Scott Moe and his government have served official notice in the legislature. They'll start invoking the notwithstanding clause to keep their controversial pronoun policy in schools. MLAs were called back to the legislature 2 weeks early for a special sitting, and they weren't the only ones to show up.
Make school safe! 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 Make school safe!
Hundreds of people gathered outside the legislative building to have their voices heard. Police and security blocked off driving and entrances and put up fencing. Most of the protesters are upset about the policy that requires children under 16 to get parental consent to change their name or pronouns. Others support the policy for a myriad of reasons. Some hold anti-LGBTQ beliefs. Others believe they're defending freedom, religion, and parental rights. Last week, a judge temporarily halted the policy, stating it could cause irreparable harm to children.
It's dangerous. It is dangerous. I knew that kids were going to feel hurt, and kids are going to feel lost and left out, and they're going to feel the way that I felt when I was in high school. And we can't have that. We just can't have it anymore.
We're not saying we hate this community or we hate this side or anything like that. We're just saying we're parents. We have the right to know what's going on with our children. If they are confused, if they are scared, if they feel isolated, I can't fix it if I don't know.
The notwithstanding clause can't happen overnight. With more on how this will play out, here's the CBC's Adam Hunter.
I would ask leave for the Minister of Education to be able to move first reading Bill number 137, the Education Parents' Bill of Rights Amendment Act 2023, right now.
Is leave granted? Leave is not granted.
The public will have to wait 2 more days to see the government's long-awaited legislation. The opposition voted against the bill's introduction on Tuesday, but it cannot stop the bill from becoming law because the government has a majority. The new law is expected to include rules that require students under 16 to receive parental permission to be called by their chosen name and pronoun in school. Legislation, the government says, will protect it from judicial review by invoking the notwithstanding clause.
With respect to including parents in their child's education, there's a number of school divisions that have, very similar, if not virtually identical policies in place today. And now what we're saying is that all of the school divisions across the province are going to mirror that policy at the conclusion of this session.
We've been called back to the legislature by
Opposition NDP leader Carla Beck says the government hasn't provided any proof the policy is needed. And she says there's little documented evidence of public pressure or consultation.
This directive came about in 9 days after getting 18 emails from people, and only 7 of those being from parents. We're expected to believe today that this is the most pressing issue, and this is something that required this government, this premier, to call the legislature back. Again, something that hasn't happened for a quarter century.
This unusual emergency session could get even stranger. The government is proposing doubling the number of hours required before passage of a law from 20 to 40, and is suggesting that MLAs sit on Friday and Saturday this week and Monday through Sunday next week. Adam Hunter, CBC News, Regina.
The opposition says that while the government is focused on an unnecessary and harmful pronoun policy, it's ignoring other more pressing concerns, including an elementary school in Saskatoon with a hole in its ceiling. Back in June, members of the Sask Party toured the elementary school Monique Rousseau to look at the hole, but nothing was fixed. Then last month, about 200 parents signed a petition asking for action. That request fell on deaf ears, according to the NDP. Last week, the school flooded, causing classes to be cancelled. The NDP says this shows the government is not listening to parents.
I think it says more about the priorities of this government. They've known about this for months, if not years. And their priority has not been to hear the voices of more than 200 parents that sent in a petition. Their priority has been to create a problem that previously didn't exist in our province, to point everyone's attention over there, and while they're failing hundreds of children that attend this school. This school has 441 students enrolled in a school designed for 375 students. Hundreds of parents have reached out. They've made their voices heard. This government is ignoring the real concerns of parents in our province.
According to the NDP, 2 classrooms and 1 library at Monique Rousseau are unusable now. In an email, a spokesperson for the Ministry of Education said the French School Board has the authority to access funding from the ministry for maintenance costs. The ministry also says construction's underway to repair the ceiling. The president and CEO of the Regina Exhibition Association, or REAL, acknowledges that his private business is putting him in a conflict of interest. But Tim Reid says he's been transparent about the conflict and that it's being managed by REAL's board. But an expert in governance doubts that's possible. Jeff Leo reports.
Tim Reid has been running the Regina Exhibition Association, or REAL, since 2018. The organization has big plans for the city, a new arena, a new baseball stadium, and more. To help with the planning, REAL hired an Alberta-based architectural firm called TBD Architecture and Urban Planning. It's a company that Reid's very familiar with because he runs his own private consulting company on the side, and his company has done 6 projects with TBD over the past 2 years.
I've always been disclosed about my private business. It was negotiated in my first contract. It has been subsequently reviewed on an annual basis by our board. And I disclose any projects I take in that private business with the board of directors to make sure that we're not in a conflict.
One of the 2 men who owns TBD is Brian Bengert, who Tim Reid describes as a very good acquaintance. Their families have spent time together, and the 2 men have gone to sporting events together. On one occasion, Reid was involved in the decision to hire TBD. Yet another time, he recused himself because of the close relationship to the company. The chair of the REAL board says Tim Reid has been transparent about the conflict of interest, and it is being managed by the book. But an expert in corporate governance at the University of Toronto told CBC that the REAL board is in a very difficult situation with this conflict of interest.
The web of relationships with REAL and TBD, and the other company, they're so intertwined. It just on the face of it creates issues that are very complex and difficult to manage from a governance point of view.
Tim Rowley says this conflict of interest is so thorny that if he was on the board, he wouldn't try to manage it. He'd try to get rid of it altogether. Jeff Leo, CBC News, Regina.
A trial got underway in Saskatoon today for the woman accused of driving impaired and killing a 9-year-old girl on her way to school. Bailey Maurice died in September 2021 after getting hit at a crosswalk on 33rd Street. 28-year-old Taylor Kennedy is charged with THC-impaired driving causing death. A Saskatoon police officer was first to testify. Constable Blake Atkinson says people began gathering at the crash scene almost immediately, and some were threatening to kill Kennedy. Atkinson says Kennedy did not appear impaired and was not initially read her rights. The trial is scheduled to run all week. Flu shots are now available, and you can get vaccinated for both influenza and COVID-19 at the same time. Chief Medical Health Officer Dr. Saqib Shahab rolled up his sleeve for the cameras this morning. There are more than 550 clinics in Saskatchewan offering vaccinations, either through booked appointments or walk-ins. That's on top of local pharmacies. Children aged 6 months to 5 years can only be immunized at SHA clinics or by a physician or nurse practitioner.
We're already seeing a slight increase in COVID cases, so this is the time to get your influenza vaccine as well as your updated COVID vaccine. And the best thing is that it doesn't matter for everyone 5 and older. It doesn't matter how many COVID vaccines you've had in the past. You just need one COVID vaccine now, the updated one, and you can get your flu shot at the same time.
People were able to book online starting last week, and already 10,000 appointments have been made. The Saskatchewan Roughriders are refocused and ready to go, or so says their quarterback after losing 38-13 at home to Hamilton over the weekend. It was the Riders' 5th loss in a row on a day that was intended to honor both George Reed and the 2013 Grey Cup winning team ahead of their Plaza of Honor induction. After the game, the head coach called the game a low point in his coaching career. At 6-10 with 2 games to go, just 4 points ahead of the Stampeders, the playoffs are not a guarantee. After 2 days off, veterans and leadership addressed the team today, hoping to get a message across.
We want better energy. We want to play with a little more emotion, and we need to execute. So we talked a lot about those 3 things and that we need all of them in order to be successful. And you can't have one without the other 2 and expect to be successful. So that's been the point of emphasis today and will be throughout the week.
We're steering the ship for our own destiny, right? So we win this week, we're in, and that's just what we got to do.
Dolegala will get the start this week at QB, backed up by Mason Fine. The players have one more practice this week before they head to Calgary on Thursday for the game Friday night. Kickoff at McMahon Stadium is at 7:30. What a gorgeous sunny day in Saskatoon today, though a windy one. The colorful leaves still clinging to trees are not getting any help from Mother Nature, that's for sure. Looks like our daytimes are going to stay pretty nice this week, but we are going to start dipping into seasonal territory. Ethan will explain more in his forecast after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Ernie Coombs was a beloved entertainer whose TV show was regular viewing for many children in Canada. Now, there's a new documentary about his life and legacy as Mr. Dress-Up. Eli Glasner has more.
Maybe you remember the music or the tickle trunk.
Oh, here's an interesting one.
If you're Canadian and a certain age, there's a good chance you spent a good part of your childhood with this guy.
Oh, would you like to have an airplane ride with me?
He was Ernie Coombs to his family, but for over 30 years, Mr. Dress-Up taught us how to make crafts and care. Coombs died in 2001, but a new documentary has him back on our screens with some surprising revelations.
Most people don't even realize that they were very close friends.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood.
Coombs first met Fred Rogers working on his kids' show in the U.S. When the CBC hired Rogers to create a Mr. Rogers prototype, there was only one man who shared his vision.
It was a philosophy they shared. Fred Rogers chose Ernie very specifically to come to Canada.
I remember Dad telling us that.
Coombs' daughter says Fred Rogers inspired Dress-Up's direct style.
Fred told him to look at the camera as a child. That's the child that you're speaking to. It's not an audience, it's a child.
Well, that was an amazing gift. Thanks very much, Granny.
Oh, you're welcome, Mr. Dress-Up.
Like many, the puppeteer for Granny was starstruck when they met.
I just remember staring at him.
She says as families are feeling this squeeze, she misses his approach.
Hey, you got some tape and a piece of paper, which, you know, most people do have, that you can create whole worlds with something that is not really elaborate.
I like to save these, you know.
Turn on a kid's show today, and it's more animation than arts and crafts.
It's cheaper to make and easier to sell around the world and dub in other languages. But then you also have something that isn't grounded in anything real.
More than just an outpouring of affection, the documentary is a reminder of what Ernie Coombs left behind.
We can all choose to slow down, take the time, build something simple, just be present.
Now, you know, we've got to be going along, so...
Eli Glasner, CBC News, Toronto.
It's bye-bye from...
Mr. Dress-Up!
Bye!
This weather update is brought to you by Titan Automotive, proud member of the Capital Automotive Group.
And our weather specialist, Ethan Williams, joins me now. A summery day with a side of wind.
Yeah, August really trying to get back in there with those nice warm temperatures. But yes, definitely a breezy day, Sam. But temperature-wise, we were definitely getting up into the 20s in some parts of the province today. Let's take a look at where those temperatures are sitting right now, and still, even at this hour, sitting over the 20-degree mark in portions of southwestern Saskatchewan. Even there in northern Saskatchewan, we're seeing temperatures well into the teens today. If you look at a place like Leader, which was the national hotspot at 26 degrees for a period of time this afternoon, that temperature is 13 degrees above seasonal for this time of year. And a lot of other places in particularly southwestern and west central Saskatchewan kind of sitting in that 7 to 10 degrees above seasonal. Now, we mentioned the winds, yes, still kind of picking up here and there this afternoon and into the early evening hours, mostly from the southeast. So they've been bringing in that nice warm flow of air, but at times in the 40 to 50 range, and in kind of far northwestern Saskatchewan, they're even getting a little bit breezier than that at times. Radar satellite showing that we are mostly clear through the province, and that is thanks to some lingering high pressure. And those bright blue sunny skies have mostly been seen kind of really from south to north, east to west through the day today. That likely to continue into tomorrow as we see not a whole lot of activity. The exception will be extreme southwestern portions of the province, a little bit of cloud cover building in as we head overnight tonight and even through the day tomorrow. Rainfall amounts from this, though, not expected to be very high, only a couple of millimeters there. But for the rest of us, just some light cloud cover tomorrow. And again, conditions going to remain sunny until we get to Thursday, and you see that cloud cover starting to build back in, especially to south and central Saskatchewan, and the possibility of a few showers also moving in there too. Now, winds likely going to still be gusty at times through the night, kind of in that 40 to 50 range, and tomorrow a repeat situation, mainly kind of coming from the southeast again, but might be shifting a bit easterly through the day, and then starting to diminish as we head into Thursday, Friday, but still a little bit breezy here and there. In terms of temperatures, the reason we've been seeing this unseasonable warmth, not only because of that nice southeasterly flow, but also because the upper atmosphere, you see those yellows and kind of lime green colors. That's that ridge in the jet stream that's been bringing those warm temperatures through the Thanksgiving weekend into this week, and that ridge broadens out getting into Friday. You see kind of those darker yellows and even some oranges there, keeping our temperatures consistent, but we will still see a bit of a drop. Regina, tomorrow, as I mentioned, pleasant day, and then temperatures getting closer to sort of the 10-degree mark, which is still about seasonal for this time of year. Again, cloud cover late Thursday into Friday expected. Maybe even next week, we could see a bit of shower activity. Saskatoon, I think, will actually stay a little bit warmer here going through these next few days. We may even see a little bit of a bump up in temperature heading into Friday, but then kind of a sharp cool down into Saturday, Sunday. But the good news, Sam, that nice sunny conditions appearing to be sticking around for our folks in central Saskatchewan and here in Saskatoon.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
The National Research Council official time signal. The beginning of the long dash indicates exactly 1 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time.
The National Research Council time signal was first heard on CBC on November 5th, 1939. It aired every day for 84 years, and yesterday was the last time. The expansion of CBC broadcasting using the internet and satellites can create delays, and that led to concerns about the accuracy of the time signal. So it was the end of an era or a signal. We'll be back after the break. Israel is stepping up airstrikes in Gaza on day 4 of its conflict with Hamas. It's in retaliation for surprise attack by militants on Saturday. The multi-pronged assault marks the single deadliest day ever for Israel. Paul Hunter is part of the CBC News team on the ground in that region and has this report from Jerusalem and a warning. Some of the images and descriptions in this story will be disturbing for some viewers.
It has been another day of relentless airstrikes in both directions in and out of the Gaza Strip today. Israeli Defense Forces striking again and again and again Hamas structures inside the Gaza Strip. In return, Hamas rockets in wave after wave, barrage after barrage, targeting places in Israel, particularly Ashkelon, a community just north of the Gaza Strip along the coast. Beyond that, some sobering and gruesome imagery from one of the small kibbutzes just east of the Gaza Strip today, where Israeli Defense Forces brought journalists to see some of what went down there on Saturday, and it was stunning in the degree of what played out. Described as a massacre by some, butchering by others. It was body after body after body after body. Men, women, children, babies, 40 babies found dead, some of them decapitated. Other people had limbs cut off, some were burnt to death. Meanwhile, on the other side of the border in Gaza, misery of a different kind as people woke up today to flattened neighborhoods, mountains of rubble from which they pulled bodies on a day in which the blockade has kicked in fully. No electricity, no fuel, dwindling food supplies, water was cut off, dwindling medical supplies in the hospitals now overrun with people from the airstrikes. It is a horror show on both sides of the border, and as Israel now contemplates whether or not to make a ground attack, the consensus seems to be that this will not be lasting days or weeks, but rather months. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Jerusalem.
We're learning more about Canadians who've been caught up in that deadly violence. Ben Mizrachi from Vancouver was killed after Hamas militants attacked a music festival in southern Israel. His family is in Israel, where his funeral will take place tomorrow. A federal MP from Vancouver-Granville confirmed Mizrachi's death. Yesterday, a Montreal couple told CBC their son, 33-year-old Alexander Luke, was killed at the same event while trying to save people around him. Ethan's back with one last look at your weather.
We talked about the warmth today, Sam, and that likely going to be continuing overnight tonight. Let's take a look at what Regina is going to be seeing for an overnight temperature this evening. Taking a look at what will be around about 8 degrees or so with clear skies. But again, the southeast wind's going to be breezy as we head through the overnight hours and into tomorrow as well. Sunny though, again, bright sunshine, 4 degrees, not a bad start at 8 a.m. for this time of year. And by the afternoon, again, looking for 11 degrees, heading to a high of around 15 or so, breezy winds continuing. Saskatoon looking for 10 at midnight. Again, same kind of gusty winds for you as well, heading into those morning and afternoon hours, getting to around 6 degrees. And then a little bit cooler than we saw today, Sam, sitting around 12, but still not all that bad.
Not bad at all. Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
And that is it for us tonight. For news anytime, you can always head to our website or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Ethan and I will be back with more local news tonight at 11. Thanks for watching and have a great night.